Above the Fallen is a 2D side-scrolling puzzle platformer game that is centered around traveling upwards instead of to the traditional left or right. The player's goal is to climb the trees of an ancient mystic forest in order to break through the canopy. The player must manipulate two characters at the same time to solve puzzles and avoid the hazards of the dark forest. Many features from our pitch, vertical movement, two characters, and the theme made it into the final version. When design was opened up to the entire team though, new elements such as animals, skills, bosses, and even co-op were added. The player uses one controller to navigate both characters at the same time. Each half of the controller manipulates his own character. Levels become progressively more complex and dangerous. The skills learned through these levels compound upon each other, giving the player more power and agency to complete each zone. We were able to teach players new mechanics through the game piece by piece in order to keep their attention. Features such as anti-gravity zones are unique in their own right, but many of these puzzles will also require previously learned skills like rolling or climbing. The game places an emphasis on puzzles over combat, creating boss encounters that must be solved using the environment instead of approaching conflict like most games. The main antagonist, the Night King, is extremely more powerful than the players, and presents an enemy that must be outsmarted rather than outgunned. Above the Fallen was originally intended to be a single player only, but our Steam Greenlight campaign showed us a significant interest in co-op from our fans.
All of the art for our game was digitally painted by hand and animated by our team. Every character or object was sketched, painted, then separated into PNG layers. These character files were then imported into Spine, rigged up with skeletons, meshes, and then pre-animated before we added them into Unity. The art style was chosen to look painted and simplistic to fit the tribal aesthetic that we were going for.
With a large list of skills and abilities we wanted to teach the player, level design was approached to separate these into digestible sizes. We knew early on that we had 6 core abilities we wanted the players to use to solve most of our puzzles outside of the mechanics like jumping and climbing. These abilities drastically change the way the player approaches certain obstacles, such as gliding over a gap previously not traversable by simply jumping. We separated each zone into 3 levels. These levels were then designed around the concept of teaching, then practicing, and finally mastery of both abilities.
Because of the original vision of our game, we wanted to create our levels and puzzles with much more vertical movement than horizontal. However, as we began to build these levels, we found that it was much more difficult to design puzzles around this aspect than we initially anticipated. So this led us to rethink how we wanted to create these interactions and still cater to our original idea. We ended up finding a middle ground when it came to a vertical and horizontal layout. What we did was we began to create spaces for our characters to move in a horizontal plane while allowing them to solve vertically based puzzles. Our initial process when it came to designing these levels involved taking as many features and mechanics that we had built in the previous months and then jam-packing them into a uniquely designed level. Before putting those features in though, the levels were thought up in sections each revolving around 1 or 2 features or mechanics.
We drastically underestimated the amount of coding required for tasks outside of gameplay. Menus, level loaders, progress saving, and audio all caught the team off guard, but they presented us with some excellent experience with topics we hadn't learned from previous classes. The team even incorporated elements of the Unity API we hadn't learned prior, as well as external editors and plugins such as Spine, Wise, and input wrappers.
The start of the project was our bumpiest area. We initially separated the scripting work into separate features so each member could work at the same time without stepping onto each other's toes. However, we all had our own methods of coding and understanding. So, as time went on, we learned how to prioritize jobs and delegate members to specific tasks that best suited their skills. Programming and animating 2 characters that had to move and interact with the scene at the same time was a great challenge, especially when all of those functions were tied to a single game controller. One of our solutions was to create a context-sensitive control so that a few buttons could manipulate every action for a character. This both simplified and complicated our design. The solution was to separate basic actions into global character scripts, and then create specific code for divergent character interactions, such as the skills.
Our team treated this as more of a portfolio piece than a school project. Knowing that we'd eventually be showing this off to potential employers, we decided to showcase our game on Steam Greenlight. We're all very proud of how it has turned out, and we couldn't have asked for a better team. Thanks for watching.